I am the parent consultant for Granite School District at the Utah Parent Center. And the Parent Center, at the Parent, we're all parents that are helping parents. We each of us parent consultants have a child that's in special education, so we understand from the parent perspective what it's like. We're working with our special education teams. We do one-on-one consultations, and we have workshops such as this one throughout the state and throughout the year. And all of the services that we provide our families are free. And the Utah Parent Center is nonprofit, and we help them just navigate all things disabilities, including special education. So thank you for being here tonight.
I work with 6 to 8 charters. We add charters every once in a while. So I work with 8 charters throughout the Valley as an educational consultant, and my name's Rochelle Thompson.
I'm Amber Beck, and I work with parents who have students in the Jordan School District.
My name is Elise Merrill. I'm the parent consultant for Canyon School District.
Leslie Hansen. I am the newly created 504 parent consultant for Canyon School District.
Okay, now I get to introduce the star of the show, which is Ben Springer. He is an award-winning and nationally certified school psychologist. Ben is also the author of the popular book, Happy Kids Don't Punch You in the Face, and has also authored a book for parents called GPS, Good Parenting Strategies, the no-guilt survival guide for parents during the pandemic and beyond. Will we ever be beyond? I don't know. But anyways, Ben received his master's and doctoral degrees from the University of Utah, go Utes, in educational psychology. Ben has worked professionally as a teacher, autism specialist, school psychologist, and director of special education. Currently, Ben works as the director of the Family Education Center in Wasatch County School District and manages the Totem PD, a professional learning company focusing on practical, ready-to-use tools for educators. We're thrilled to have Ben here. He's a great friend to the Utah Parent Center, and we can't wait to learn from him today. Take it away, Ben.
Well, thank you so much, man. You guys are so nice. And the introduction is, I always feel sheepish. It should end with his initials are BS. And that's what everybody's going to be getting tonight, a little bit of it. I'm also a parent. That should probably lead with that, of 4 lovely daughters. Yeah, it's a challenge. So if you're on the call this evening, good job getting away for a second. I guess that's the first thing. Nice work. And treat yourself after. Tell everybody else it was a 2-hour Zoom, and go do something for yourself after this. But I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going. The flow of it will be, I'll share some resources and some strategies, and we'll take a little stop in the middle where you guys can take a poll, and then I'll finish, and then you guys will end with some Q&A, and there will be another poll for you guys to take as the Utah Parent Center tries to learn and how to support everybody on this thing. So big thanks to the UPC. Oh, look at all these folks with the UPC. It's so great to hear there's all this representation in the state of Utah. And that's great. So let me pull up my screen here. So I'm going to jump right into it because time is not a commodity lots of us have. And I'm going to start with a really bad joke. And so if you laugh, I think you might be a bad person, or we might be friends, or both. I don't know. But this is, we call this the bird, so you can give your kids the bird. There it is. It's a bad joke. If you laughed, you shouldn't have. And I'm sorry I had to share it. You just have to lead with the bad joke sometimes. But the bird is, if I could round out, if I'm working with anybody who cares about little ones, school age kids from preschool to high school, it's not that this stuff wouldn't work beyond high school, but hopefully at some point these little birds, they got to fly. That's part of the part of the gig. So tonight's topic is how to encourage motivation and accountability in our kids, regardless of the age and regardless of what we're all going through. Everybody on this call has probably had all the ups and downs of being a parent and how difficult it is. And none of this is, the perfect solution to everybody's individual things. However, they're all very well grounded in the research of human development and what we do with kids, regardless of their abilities and their interests and their motivations. And hopefully, if I do my job this evening, it's all about sharing practical things. There's no expectation that parents should know every single avenue about every single thing, and because I live by a philosophy that kids are inconvenient, and that should be celebrated, right? And modern culture is we're all pretty addicted to convenience, which is I love my phone. If I go to the gas station, I don't have to be bored. I can catch up on anything I want. And we're moving towards this convenience. Like gas stations with my phone are probably literally the most convenient place on the planet. I can get whatever I want from a fountain drink, a little snack, and I can watch something on my phone. And it's all absolutely, it's for those of us that grew up of a certain vintage pre-internet, this is magical time. This is a magical time, but it's also counter to rearing children, which is not easy. It's not convenient. They're literally and figuratively can be pains in our butts, and that's okay to feel that way. And parenting, I always say, is rewarding that much of the time. The rest is just hard work. And so if I can help anybody on this call get a couple tips and tricks to help their kids get out of bed in the morning, shoot for the stars, correct a misbehavior, or just learn, how to develop the relationships that we share with one another in these everybody's unique family situations, then I think we'll give it a shot for the next 50 minutes or so. So right off the bat, the B of the bird is behavioral approaches. And I kind of wish that this was handed out to all parents. If you're adopting a child, if you inherit a child, you give birth to a child. I wish this bird would be given to all parents, because it's not just one approach that works, right? And it's going to be a combination of these four that are very effective. But I will tell you, there are some really effective behavioral approaches. And when I say behavioral, that's grounded in this science of, which is really essentially just studying the outward, things that we can observe in human behavior. And they've done a lot of research, probably for over 100 years, on human motivation. And the first thing I would admonish any parent that has kids that are not listening or are avoidant or, whatever, you fill in the blank of what is annoying to us about our kids sometimes. The first thing is establish some non-negotiables, right? So every family, and this is interesting working as many years as I have with parents, these are pretty universal most of the time. And the non-negotiables typically include, in this house, in our family unit, physical aggression is not permitted. It's not allowed. It's not something that we do. Verbal aggression is something that's not permitted. It's not something that we do. And anything that would make you unsafe or our family unsafe is just not something that we do. And it really is just establishing these basic ideas of physical and psychological safety in a family. And if you can identify and agree as a family that these three things are non-negotiable, they just can't exist in the family unit. The trick is, once you have those non-negotiables, is put all of our efforts in focusing on the opposite of those. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Like if you have kids who are all constantly fighting, or they're verbally abusive, or they argue all the time, or they're impulsive and they're not being safe, whether that's online or out in the physical world or whatever. If we over focus on the negative things our kids are doing, it creates what's called an awareness spike. And we just become it's almost like overexposed to the negative things, and we start feeling guilty as parents. And if we feel guilty as parents, we go down a whole cycle, which is really no good. So the trick is actually just knowing where your hard line is, and then really coaching and teaching our children about the opposite, which is we're going to be respective of physical space in this home. And I'm going to catch you guys. And this is probably my first practical tool of the evening. If you have a phone, a watch, a microwave timer, an egg timer, any timer, set it for about 10 or 15 minutes. Every time it goes off in your home, find somebody following those opposites of the non-negotiables, somebody who is respecting physical space, using uplifting language and words, and practicing being safe at your home and at school and the community. And it's just a timer. And adults, our default state is kind of negative, right? I don't know about you guys, but when I wake up in the morning, I don't like look in the mirror and I'm not like, yeah, buddy. It's like my initial response is, dear God, like that's the negative part of most human beings. And what we have to do is, it's just like an exercise. We have to train where our focus is. And if we wake up every day ready to chew on the stuff that we don't like what our kids are doing, the stuff that really drives us crazy, we end up just seeing more of it. And it's bad for our health. It's bad for relationships. It's not great. So we really actually have to train ourselves. And that's what the timer does. You put it on your phone, you put it on your watch, put it on your microwave, whatever it is. This can, when you're traveling in a car, you're wherever you're going, you're on a walk to the park, whatever you're doing, set a timer and catch your kids engaging in these opposite of the non-negotiables. And I will tell you from my experience running parent training groups, this is by and large the most positive feedback I get from parents. They're like, where was this freaking timer idea 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago? And if you've got little ones, guess what? Boom, you have the timer approach and you get to use it for your kids. So it's good for all relationships. Wink, wink. We'll talk about that in a second. And take notes now if you have any questions about the B. But that is my first practical skill for any parents to increase student motivation and responsibility and accountability, is be very clear about what your expectations for psychological and physical safety are in your home. I know it sounds like that should be a no-brainer, but when we're in the blender of a family, we say things that we didn't mean, we do things that we didn't mean, and it's important to also acknowledge with our kids, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have said what I said last night. I'm really sorry. Hey, me not telling you where I went and coming home late, I could understand where that you might have felt like you felt that was unsafe. Or, I mean, and heaven forbid there's any physical aggression in any of our homes, but it happens. And if it does, we need to seek help and really establish these physical and psychological boundaries. And all of us can rebound from those things. So if you have any questions, you can just kind of put down at the B at the end of the thing. We can talk about this and I'll be happy to answer those. But really, I don't want to overcomplicate it or outthink the room. Set a timer, find your kids being awesome at a higher rate than you find them being not awesome. It is real simple math. And if you're not catching it enough, increase the interval of the timer from 10 to 15 minutes to 5 to 6. If you need to get to 2 to 3 minutes, it happens. And you don't have to do it all the time, but it's when you're in the home with them, right? A lot of times, I'll come home, kick off my shoes, my kids are quiet, I'll start flipping through TikTok or something, and then I hear a big crash and a big fight or something, and I'll run downstairs and I'll be like, what the heck's going on down here? And if you rewind that scenario, I ignored my kids being awesome and I gave them tons of attention for being not awesome. And on accident, we can encourage kids to get our attention by acting not awesome. And that's unfortunately a hole that a lot of us can fall into. I know I have. The more time I spend with my kids, if I don't deliberately try and do this timer approach, I can end up being really negative, and it's hard. And I've been trained and I've been using this stuff. It's hard for all of us. So that's a practical tip. Number one is the behavioral approach. It's actually called, if you wanted to get nerdy, a reinforcement schedule. It's been around for a very long time. It's effective. At the University of Utah, we were trained on this. It works on pigeons and humans and everybody. So give it a shot. I always challenge parents, try this for 2 weeks before you give up on it. You're going to try it the first day and be like, stupid timer, stupid ball guy, stupid nothing. And try it for longer. Do it longer. We need a consistent approach for these things to work. A lot of times, because we're so distracted and there's always some bright new shiny thing, we can give up on things that are good too early. And that I would give that challenge for anything that you think applies to your family this evening. I would give you that challenge. Give it 2 weeks before you give up on it. All right, the next one are intellectual approaches. To make a cute acronym, I couldn't call it cognitive behavioral, so I had to call it intellectual, but you all understand, I had to make it a cute acronym. Cognitive behavioral approaches are probably the most effective, have been around the longest, most research-based way to reach kids and really any human being. And the goal is to help us, everybody, to help us think about the way we think. So the next practical tool that I want to share with you all, I hope it's oops, sorry, I went back.
What's going
I
on?
hope it, well, something's happened on my computer. My computer wanted to restart or something. Sorry about that. I think I stopped it. Please don't restart computer. Okay. So this is something that I call building your brand. For some reason, when I say the word family values, I grew up in the 90s and it just has a cringy vibe to it. So it's the same idea, but it's building your brand. And I think we understand a lot more about brands, those of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s. It's like the Nike swoosh, the Apple Mac computer, you name it. These are all brands that we identify a feeling with or something that we're into. And the science behind it is actually very similar to an approach found in what's called acceptance and commitment therapy. It's kind of a branch of behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. And the commitment part is finding our core values and acting on them daily. And that's how you build a brand. Now, there's different vibes of families out there. If you're of the family where you can sit down with your kids and have an activity and they don't like, revolt or you have a mutiny or whatever, you can have an activity and you can actually build like a coat of arms and it means something. It means your last name or whatever it is. And there's tons of core value lists out there on the internet. My favorite happens to be the one that Brene Brown creates. It just has a nice list of them, but there's literally hundreds. And out of this huge list of core values, the activity is find the core values, and you can do that as a family, and you can just read them. Or if you're like, my kids are not into the activities, Ben, I don't want to do that. And that's totally fine. You and your partner, or if it's just you do it. This is the adults in the room activity, really. You want to include your kids developmentally appropriate as much as you can, but this is like a real situation where the adults in the room, so many of us on this call, we're just human beings. And most of us, at least in my experience, parents, we just survive, like we just get by. And that's okay. And we got to be honest, that's where a lot of us really are. But the only problem with just getting by is sometimes we lose the scope or the reason or our why. Like, why am I just getting by? Like, what is the point? Why would I try this? And all the research and this is just, again, try it for 2 weeks. This is for us. This isn't for your kids. This is for the adults. Identify core values that you want to represent in your family. Pick 3. Don't pick more than 3. It's okay if you focus on 1. But list them, put them on the fridge, put them on your phone, whatever your high traffic area. And you, just as the parent on this phone call or the Zoom call, work to act for at least a couple minutes a day on 1, 2, or all 3 of those core values. And what you're going to be doing by that is you're going to be focusing on what is the most important thing to you. And as you open up a list of core values, which you'll find any of them online, you'll know the core values that are most important to you, because if you read one and if it ever gets violated and it enrages you, that's a very important core value to you. So I would assume many of us on this call, like compassion would be a core value for those of us that work with families and kids and all that kind of stuff. And when we see people who are not compassionate, it infuriates us, right? Other people, most people get upset, like, oh, that's too bad, that person didn't. When core values are violated, we get upset. And all of our core values don't have to be these big honorable things. I can tell you one of my core values is leisure time. And I know it's a core value of mine because if it gets violated, if I have to take work home or it's over the weekend or something interrupts a break of mine, I get super bugged and I get super down. So you can also, as a family, be like, well, we're compassionate. That's one core value. We value honesty and we value our leisure time. And that's time alone and time with each other. And if that was your 3 core values, act on them, 1, 2, or all 3 of them every day for 14 days and see what happens. And here's the practical tip. After you've identified them, the next problem that comes to your lap, where your kid is arguing with you about doing chores, your kid is refusing to try a new activity that you think they would be good at if they just gave it a shot. You name it, fill in the blank of the challenge that you're like, God, my kid, I need them to do this thing. I know it's going to be good for them. I want them to learn this skill. Instead of saying, you do it or I'm going to ground you, which is a threat, and we've all done it. And we all know and can sigh how effective those approaches are, which is not very, very effective. Or we're like, we'll guilt trip them. My parents, I always joke with them, they were like the masters of guilt tripping. And they're like, it's okay. I'll just work another job, Ben, so you can enjoy your life. And there's things like that. Those are also not as effective as we want. But if a kid says, I don't want to clean, I'm so busy, you don't understand my life. School is so hard. It's harder than when you guys went to school. You don't understand jack about my life. And you're just asking them to clean the bathroom. Instead of having an argument, it's like, oh, you don't think you understand. We get to that whole back and forth thing. Then look at your core value and be like, okay, I have a core value of compassion. So I am going to listen. Instead of arguing with my kid, I'm going to listen to him. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know. That's good to know. I didn't know that it was so hard. I didn't know you were so under stress. Let's say the core value is honesty. It's like, okay, well, be real with me. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I need help. Our house is big. It's hard to manage working, coming home, cooking, and cleaning. It's just hard for me. I'm just being honest with you. So I'm not even on your case. You can take a break, but I would love some help cleaning the bathroom. I'll take turns with you, but we got to rotate that. So there's your compassion, there's your honesty core value. And now you got leisure time. It's like, dude, if we can just clean this bathroom, well, then we can go do what we want to do. I don't want to be in your business. I'm just trying to live by what it means to be in our home, which is we're compassionate, we're honest, and we like to spend time with each other, and we like our solo time. When you identify core values, when we do as parents, we can filter all the challenges and conflict right through them. And so our kids know our why. So often we don't get to share with our kids our why. And I'll tell you, it's because we're busy. I don't think many of us on this call have ever sat down and be like, what are my core values? What do I believe? But you personally, not what someone told you to believe, not what you think you should believe, but like if you were really honest with yourself, what are your core values and what would you act on? And if you can identify those, that's the first step. Share them, act on them, and then when the next conflict arises, use them to guide you as your North Star to guide through conflict. So that's the I. That's a cognitive behavioral approach. It's an aspect of acceptance and commitment therapy. It's the commitment part. It's a committing to a core value and acting on it. And try it for 2 weeks and see what happens to you personally, and as you model it with your family and your kids, regardless of the age of what you're working with. So if you have any questions about the I, this is the time to say, I have a question about the I want to know more about that. Okay. So I don't have any connection or there's no kickback or anything of mentioning their names. But for those of you on this call, if you're interested in relationships, which I can pretty much guarantee if you're on a Thursday night at a parenting class or course, you're interested in relationships, I would highly recommend you investigating or just, I'll tell you how I use it. I learned about the Gottman Institute and the research that the Gottman Institute does in graduate school, and we were studying group therapy and family counseling in a class that I had. And I just thought, okay, that's cool. And then later, the more I started working in schools and with kids, and obviously with my own family, I've started referencing and visiting a lot of their work more and more. And anyway, it's worth your time. I'm not a big Facebook guy, but I love their Facebook posts. It's like just little nuggets of really good relationship advice. And it's like, oh, I think I needed to hear that. That's how good it is. They know us and they know human beings and what good, healthy relationships are so well. And so little resource, little something that's out there for you. So that's, I guess, one kind of tool. It's like pointing your nose to a resource. The other tools are they came up with this idea in Marriage and Families about the relationship house, and it's held up by 2 columns of trust and commitment. And so my challenge number 1, if you're interested in the R, and again, the idea behind our parenting strategies tonight are, if you do the behavioral approach, just finding your kids being awesome and identifying those non-negotiables, you're doing great. Now, if you threw in those intellectual approaches that we were talking about, right, where you're actually sharing and building and making decisions and resolving conflict through your core values, and you're doing the behavioral approaches, you might be knocking this out of the park. Now it's like you're diving into, if you start going into this relational category, you're gonna be doing great. Like, this is as good as it can get for parents if you're doing this stuff regularly. And how do we build trust, right? That's a rhetorical question I'd ask you guys on this call. And we're all in relationships, and you know how you have trust in relationships in your life. And you just have to backtrack and ask yourself, why do I trust that person so much? Or why does this person trust me so much? And if you pay attention, we build trust a lot of times just through our word and our integrity and showing up when we say we were going to show up. And that then leads towards a commitment, which is it's on the time continuum. Now, if you think about what the Gottmans are telling us here, those two things hold up every healthy relationship. I trust you. You trust me. It's a place of integrity, of safety, and it's got a timeline associated with it. Meaning, it's not just for today that you can trust me. I'm telling you that I've given you such a pattern of behavior, or you've provided it to me, that we can trust each other, and therefore we can commit to this action, whether we're single, married, divorced, working on it, whatever area we're in as families. This is something that we can all work on and share and build and identify that it's essential for relationships. Once you have those two pillars of the relationship house made up, there's some really cool activities, and I'll give you a little resource at the end. I feel bad. It's kind of a plug for my book, but it's also like I've compiled all these things. So I don't know how to share it, but it's all comprehensive in there. But there are really cool activities in the appendix, which, wink, wink, I think if you click on the publishing website, you can get the appendices for free, and you don't even have to buy the book if you don't want to. I think that's how the link on that thing works. But anyways, shared meaning is basically where you sit down and you identify with one another. And this can be with your partner, or this can be with your kids, or it can be with everybody. And obviously, I recommend you do this with everybody. Around Thanksgiving is a good time. Around the holidays are a good time to do this. And you identify through your core values what core values you guys do share. And sometimes they're different, and sometimes they're not, and that's okay. But yeah, I kind of identify, hey, what is our why, and do we share similar whys? And it's okay if we don't. We just want to know. That's the activity. Dream writing and sharing sounds just as cheesy and corny as it is, and that might turn most of you off. But I am telling you, as someone who is like anti-cheese, this is money. This is really worth your time, even just as an individual. And then just imagine how powerful it is. But it's basically writing a narrative for your future of where if in some magical world, somebody decided you were the star of the movie and they were going to write you your favorite ending. Your happiest ending ever. You write it out yourself and you reflect on it and watch what happens. Just try it for 2 weeks before you say it's too cheesy. And then once you do that, you're going to be so geeked out and be like, oh my gosh, it's working. You're going to be able to talk to other people. It's not some weird, thing. It's about our focus. And so many of us, when we're in our families, in our jobs, in our relationships, that blender, we kind of forget why we got into the family business or why we got into the relationship business. And it's a time to remember that. Now, if you're in a safe place and you can share this, you have that trust and commitment, those pillars up in your relationships, you share those dreams and you do that practice together and watch what happens. It's the fastest way to build rapport. It's the fastest way to understand somebody. Even in therapy, when I'm working with individual clients or families, dream writing is an activity that I always shoot for, because you can get to know someone really, really well just by knowing what their hopes are and where they would like to be. And it's grounded in reality, right? It can't be like, I'm going to be the princess of the ice cream canyon. It can't be like that. I don't know anybody would want that, but you get the idea. Conflict resolution, they have a whole saying that we should turn towards instead of away. And I think any of us that have been in a meaningful relationship in your life, you know exactly what that means. If we don't resolve conflict, and we're all guilty of it, like I'm the classic stonewaller. If I get upset, I'm having an existential crisis after watching the Barbie movie anyway. I don't just have Kenergy, I have Benergy. I have a whole problem. I'm on a parenting seminar and I feel like a complete incompetent parent. So there you go. I'm having a moment myself. But we all know this. If you're in a relationship and we don't resolve the little conflicts or the big conflicts, we all know, and I'm staring at you guys as human beings, we start harboring resentments, and a lot of those resentments can spread and get viral and toxic, and they can really, really hurt us with our kids and our partners and whomever we're trying to build a relationship. Colleagues, coworkers, it's the same thing. So what is conflict resolution? Do you have to be a trained FBI negotiator to get through conflict? No, it's taking turns. It's listening. And I wish, if I could get on a soapbox, I wish that's something that we could do. We need to listen to our kids. We need to frame it that we're going to take turns, and then ask them respectfully, please listen to me. I need you to know where I'm coming from. And now you can see where this braids into the core value approach. If I can explain to somebody why I'm having a conflict because it's violating or it's threatening or it's hurting one of my core values, it's no longer me versus you. It's these things that matter to me aren't being respected, and it's hurting me. It's taking a layer away from me every day, and I need that to stop. And I know you don't mean to do this to me, but this is how I feel, and this is how we're doing it. And you can actually have that conversation. You can take turns and listen a lot better if you have those non-negotiable established and your core values established. Really critical for just all of us navigating the modern world. Because I think those of us on the call, I think you would realize, if I were to ask you, hey, what's our conflict resolution skills as communities or schools or families? Are we getting better or worse at it? And I think, man, you say one opinion nowadays, and someone doesn't like it, it's a huge thing. And it's like, can we just listen? I'll take turns. Listen, let's do it. The other thing in relationships is building optimism. And again, these tools are in my book, and it's optimism is not that toxic positivity type of optimism where it's like, hi, good morning, turn that frown upside down and here's the popsicle or whatever. Optimism is actually a belief in a brighter future. And I think belief systems are really personal, and there are things that everybody has to reach at some point. And it should become as no surprise that through all the years of studying healthy relationships, partners and parents and children that can remain an optimistic attitude, that believe that things can get better, things go better. And then the last one's actually pretty easy, and you can braid this last bullet point into the B approaches of setting your timer. But share fondness and admiration daily. If you just try one bullet point on this list to build a relationship, try that one for 14 days. Just see what happens. You identify the people in your life that you care about in your family, that you call your family. This can be your work family, this can be your nuclear family, this can be whatever it is. Try sharing fondness and admiration with them every day for 14 days. See what happens. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what happens. So that's the R. That's the relationship part of the bird. And let me jump to our last one here. So if you can believe it, there's all those French. There's two French and one Italian name on that top box. If you can imagine, Jean-Jacques Rousseau by candlelight was writing with a feather pen, like that type. That's how long ago this has been. And he identified something that was pretty revolutionary time. He didn't love the way there was this French kind of aristocratic class or caste system in France, and he didn't like it for one reason or the other. And he was a philosopher, and he made an argument, and then he started defending his argument when people argued with him. And he said, you know what, families and schools and these social structures screw up kids, and it's a bold statement. And you read his work and you find out, and it's been refined, and and people, that was kind of the revolutionary thought. But what he created is what I like to call is this whole it's really, you can trace this whole practice back to from Maria Montessori to the work that Jean Piaget did in our developmental stages. Anybody that believes that there are things that are in our nature, like you've all heard of the nature nurture debate. I don't even consider debate. They're just two sides of the same coin. But remembering that that kids will develop, human beings will grow and go through sequences like they always have, and to respect that sequence. That's what that message is from this kind of line of philosophy. The B, where I started from, is the other line, right? Where it's like nurture. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to learn you good. You don't do this in my house. You can do this in my house. That's the behavioral approach. And it's not opposite, but a different approach is, I'm going to let you be you. What you're doing, isn't my vibe, but I'm going to let you be you. And because that's the methodology of this approach is children are like wildflowers and they grow best by a babbling brook, not in a garden, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like when we have a tendency to over control, take a step back and watch it unfold. And I do a little exercise with teachers that I work with parents and psychologists, anybody working with kids, is everybody, if you're being honest with yourself, we all lean towards one side of this nature nurture coin. Some of us lean towards, if you're being honest with yourself, I could tell you, I like to think that I'm a little bit more like flexible and ooh, wildflowers and yeah, you do you, bro. But like in my own house and when things, push comes to shove, I lean a little bit more towards like law and order. And so when I do have a conflict with my kids or at my house, I practice something that I've had to practice, because what I like to do is wherever you lean, just lean the other way just a little bit. We don't want to go in polar sides of, oh, I'm all behavior this way and now I'm all development this way. You want to be somewhere in the middle, but just be honest where you are now. And when a conflict occurs where I might want to come in and do law and order, I'm gonna remind myself, hold up, Ben, why don't you just step back and see what happens? There's so many examples of this where we want to act and fix the situation, but man, if we just would have listened, if we just would have watched a little bit longer, the story would have unfolded about what was going on with our kid. And now, if you're a little bit on the wildflower side, and you're like, you know what, I just let them grow. I don't want to interfere. They do them. I love their life. I love every little aspect about their sweet little bodies. Whatever that version of parent you are. Next time the kid makes a mistake, instead of being like, it's okay, you'll learn from it, you little boo-boo, maybe throw in a little bit of more structure. It's just a balance. That's all I want to bring in with people is it's a balance. It's not one's better than the other. It's both. And just kind of challenge yourself to do what doesn't come as natural to you. And these are just real classic things that come from John Piaget. And if you're on the call right now and you have a preschooler through second grade, we know this is cross-cultural, doesn't matter the languages. We know this about kids. If you're in this age group, they learn by playing, period. If you want your kids to learn a lesson about respecting, following directions, respecting personal space, going to bed on time, play it. Set up it doesn't matter if you have toys, get rocks, put a picture on them and say, this is the mama rock, and this mama rock is so tired. Oh, and the kid rock's playing, and they're like, and you can actually make the kid rock look like Kid Rock, for those of you who know that pop culture person. But you get the idea. You play with this age group. You have to engage in play, and it's tiring, and you're going to be exhausted, and you can have your moments later. But if you want to teach your kids a skill or motivate them, play with them, follow their interest. That doesn't mean you spoil them and you do whatever they want to do. And that goes back to making sure that you do have these other strategies in place. But hang with them, follow them. It's exhausting, it's tiring, but that was the gig. That's what we signed up with. When they're that little, we got to figure them out. We got to play and have fun as best we can. And it doesn't have to be all day, every day, but a good 30-minute sesh, phones in the freezer, you're completely plugged in with your kid. That's a great way to teach your kid, to motivate them for things you want to do. If you got the 3rd to 5th grade age group, they're starting to develop some real basic logic and reasoning. They still aren't going to understand a verbal lecture. They're mostly going to connect some dots of like, I think I'm in trouble. My mom used a big word. I think she said a bad word, whatever. And they're going to be real rudimentary connections. We want to teach them in real basic sense. Hey, I don't want to get into like a negotiating tactic with you. If you do something awesome, I want you to go reward yourself. I need you to know this about life. I need you to go find something to, if you had a good day at school today, I think that's great. What would you do for yourself right now? I know your bank account, you don't have any money in it. So don't ask for a Switch or a shopping spree at Target. What would you do for yourself right now? You did so great at your sporting event or this reading assignment or whatever it is. What would you do to reward yourself? And just watch them, see what they do. You're teaching them so many critical skills about self-motivation and drive. When we do that discussion with kids, academics get really serious for kids in that age group, or at least we pretend that it's serious, or I don't know what the right word is, but I mean, we're trying to get kids to read and, get their math skills down pat and all that kind of stuff. And that's good. But so much of public schools' focus is on performance, and we can really squash kids' motivation by focusing on performance. A bumper sticker for a developmental approach in kids is effort is always greater than performance. I just want you to try your best, bro. And the more we can communicate with our schools and our teachers that effort is what we're targeting. And I know teachers have to have metrics and accountability. I'm not against that, but kids aren't dumb, and the stress that teachers have and that parents have about grades and performance on tests and end of level testing, it trickles down to them. And it doesn't become pleasant for the kids that struggle. And it's a setup for the kids who do well at it, because the kids who do well at all these testing and performance measures, they get their butts kicked when they go to a real competitive college or a competitive workplace, and they can't handle failure. And the antidote to all this is effort. Just, hey man, I'm into your effort. If you're going to be lazy about and you don't even try, that's where I get upset. And then tie that to your core value, right? Tie that to sharing fondness, admiration. I love this about your personality. You're super chill, but buddy, reading is something we can't be chill with. We got to push. We got to start blending these sounds or whatever it is. So that's that 3rd and 5th grade range is really start introducing that you care as a parent, like a core value of your family about school is effort, not performance. And let them know that, like, we can talk to schools. We'll do pass fail. We don't care about grade point averages. I want your effort. I want you to work so hard that when you hit a wall, you'll try and climb up it, and that's what we want. And if you are doing something that's a lot of effort and you don't see the fruits of it, let's talk about it. I want to listen. And you're going to teach kids so much through that process. Teach kids how to provide restitution if they make a mistake. We're adults, just be like, what do we need to do to make this right? And have a conversation with them. They're building the basic logic. They don't need a lecture. They need to think. And so just ask them, what do we do, man? We got to fix this. You hurt a lot of people's feelings by doing this. I know you're a good kid. You're not in trouble, but what are we going to do to fix this? Just sit, let the silence sit until they answer. They'll come up with something. If you got the 6th grade plus age group, I know this is like historically, it's the teenagers or the tweens, authenticity is the currency. So if you're having a rough day and you're faking it, they'll smell it. If you're just following up on homework because you think that's what you're supposed to do, they'll smell it. We need to, again, our authentic selves can be found when we mine our core values. And that's what I kind of want to end with you guys today on. If you're interested in these approaches, braid them, use them, try them all for 14 days. They all complement each other, and they make us really, really learn some stuff about ourselves, about our kids. And that's the best part about being an adult, is these moments of conflict are always moments for learning. And so don't feel bad if you're having conflict in your home. I hate saying this, but sometimes, you guys, it's necessary for learning. And you don't want to seek out conflict or start conflict by any means, but when it comes naturally, think about it as, hey, wow, I'm going to try some bird strategies right now. And it helps you remove the emotional response out of it, because you're like, oh, I have some strategies. I have the bird strategies. And then you're less emotional, which is the hardest gig on the planet for a parent, is how do we not always be emotionally reactive? So with that, I'm going to kind of round it out for some Q&A. UPC, you guys guide me if you want to do the poll now and then questions, or vice versa. I'm at your service.
Rochelle, what would you like to do? I'm non-committal. I guess we'll go ahead and we will launch the poll. Ben, you can also be taking questions while we launch the poll, if that's something that you'd like to do. So I'll go ahead and go back.
Amber, do we have some questions in the poll to ask Ben?
It might be helpful too if you wanted to ask a question, put it in the chat, and then I could kind of read them and go down.
Nothing yet, but we welcome questions. We've got an expert here.
Is this recorded? Can I have that sent to my wife? That would be amazing. There was somebody that said I was expert at parenting. She would reject it
Being recorded.
immediately.
It is being recorded, that's for sure. So one scenario, just walk me through this. So we've got a student, I support a charter that's online. And their biggest challenge is getting their student to log on.
Yeah, I
How do
mean,
you put
that,
these into place for that?
yeah, the whole thing, I'd go right to the bird. I'd be like, non-negotiable, buddy, is we have to learn in our house. All right. Now, I'm not your teacher. You got an online school, and that's the avenue that we're doing this in. So that's the non-negotiable. So you've got to focus your attention on all the times and all the skills, and talk to your kid about logging in, how to help them log in, listen to them. Do you need help logging in? What can I do to help? Start there with the B, and then go to the core values. I'm not just nagging you to get you online so you can stare at the computer and not engage. What are your core values? What do you want to get from this education, this online experience that we're doing? And identify their core values and start aligning them with the online content and with the teachers and the team. So many kids, and I'm so guilty of this as a parent. I sleepwalk through my kids' education. I do, and I sometimes have to snap out of it. And it's like, oh, I should be kind of going through these bird strategies with my kid and my school team, so we can all reach this, instead of it's just a nagging, pushing. So many kids. I work with a ton of kids every day, and so many of in school settings. And I can't tell you how many times I still hear, "What's the point? Why am I here? This is so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Why do they make us do this? My teacher doesn't even understand." And it's all these complaints about the meaninglessness of what education is. And it is meaningless until we identify the core values. Is learning a family core value of ours? And is it something that we're going to hold up to a high standard? If it's not, don't be surprised that our kids aren't picking up on it. If it is, we'll act on it and we'll solve problems through that. And you just go down the list of the bird, and spend more time with your kid. If they're not online, and that's time that they should be, and you're at work, text them and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? What's up? I'm not trying to bug you about getting online, but I'm an investigative journalist about the why." And listen, and take it, listen, and be like, "Oh, okay. They don't like the teacher, or they don't like the way it's too complicated, or there's all these little Canvas buttons that they don't know." I mean, we'll find some things from that if we're actively building that currency of authenticity. And then in the age group that they're in, you can see where preschool and second grade, can they do online activities? Yes, but it's got to be coupled with play. And they're in third and fifth grade, we've got to help them. I would spend more time about the process of logging in and completing online work than the actual consuming the instruction, because that's where they're going to need a lot of the help with their executive skills. And sixth grade plus, a lot of kids choose online platforms because the brick and mortar or the social aspect is stressful, or they had a bad experience, or whatever it is. There's lots of valid reasons to do online work. And nowadays, some of it's just convenience. But meet the kids where they are about why they chose that, and connect that to a core value. Coach them that we are happier and more motivated when we act on core values. And there's got to be something in the learning environment that scratches an itch of a core value, or the educators are doing something wrong. Does that make sense? Like, it's got to connect. It's got to be engaging, and that's where they come in. That's a good question.
Okay, we've got somebody asking the name of your book and how it can be purchased.
Oh my gosh, was that planned? Was that my mom? Thank you, Barbara. My mom has plenty of copies. This is not a plug. You could call Barbara Springer. She doesn't have an email anymore, but she has plenty of copies. But there it is. You can order it at Corwin. It's a real quick read. Like I said, the trick is I think in the appendices. That's where I pull all my. I create it from the parent workshops that I do, and so the appendices are all the tools that I share in my parent workshops.
We would like tips on helping a 15-year-old child with ADHD be self-motivated.
That's it. I really can't say enough about. I mean, ADHD is a real serious problem for kids when it comes to school and motivation. So in addition to this book, and I hate just handing out books, like that's the thing, but there's a book called Smart But Scattered by Peg Dawson and Richard Guare. That's an excellent resource. Now, I don't want to overlook the bird. I would definitely go through these steps with the 15-year-old. Be as honest and as authentic as you can, communicating with them, and be like, look, I legit, if I'm a teenager right now, ADHD, and I go to school and there's screens and there's phones and there's social anxieties and all this stuff, I want to be honest with that student and be like, hey, organizing life is going to put you down. I think there is a point where we can teach kids some learned helplessness, because life is actually, if you have ADHD and you're going to school and you're just supposed to kind of survive, it can be really, really difficult. So the next prong of that is reach out to a school psychologist, school counselor for some help. If you are interested, well, I guess that you'd need a counselor or something to do it. I have a program for adolescents called the Brain Packet, and it's kind of like an onion, and we just slowly peel these motivational factors away from, but they're all grounded in these bird strategies. So from the parent lens, your job isn't to build motivation in your kids. It's there to support them. Make sure they don't violate any non-negotiables when they're not motivated. Share with them the core values. Build a solid relationship with them first. I never want to coach a parent to do something where school is more important than your relationship. That I know this is going to sound crazy, but let's just say marijuana misuse is now the focus of all the conflict. Don't turn the marijuana misuse into the focus of the relationship. Focus on the relationship, and then you can start solving the reasons why marijuana is being misused or something like that. I'm not saying the student's using marijuana or anything, but what I'm trying to say is we don't want to turn school into the divide of a relationship. We want the relationship to drive the interest in the school. And we can do that by identifying these core values, being honest, being accountable, and being authentic with our kids.
Then somebody's asking, what do you do with a middle schooler who seems apathetic about school and grades? We've always stressed effort over actual grade, but he just doesn't seem to care.
Yeah, that's also unfortunately a super common situation when we're talking about middle school age in particular. And so I want to break down a little bit of the context. And of course, always reach out to someone that can work directly with you and get to know your student on a personal level and stuff. That's always most effective than just listen to some bald guy online. But middle school presents a really unique challenge that I wish we were better at in schools. And there's a lot of things that make it hard, and there's a lot of us that are trying to, help, but it's a whole thing. But where kids can get beaten down motivationally is they have 8 teachers requesting 8 different things through 8 different styles, 8 different relationships. And I don't know, and all of us, those of us that can remember middle school and high school, those were stressful times, not just because of puberty and relationships and identity crises and stuff like that, but it was like, man, there's a lot of people on my case. And what we need to do is have a conversation with the teachers and be like, can I get a unified approach so my kid knows the 3 biggest things he's supposed to understand from your classroom? Because my kid with ADHD or my kid with any other kind of distraction, maybe it's just an emotional distraction in their life, whatever it is, it's so hard. We take it for granted that kids are just doing it. And my experience working with middle schoolers is they're not just doing it. A lot of kids are struggling. It's really hard work. And, we always kind of roll the dice and we hope that there's this teacher connection. And when that does happen, you see motivation increase. So my short answer is visit with your school team and just plead with them for, hey, give me the top 3 things my kid's supposed to take from your class. And then always request, especially in middle school, and you can do this in high school, but you got to eyes wide open. You got to visit with the high school about what it means, but just talk about pass fail. Like we're not interested in grade point average. We're interested in effort. I think my kid could pass your class if they knew the big 3 things that they need to learn in 6th grade English or 6th grade geography or things like that. And it's not lowering the standard. It's refining it. It's trimming the fat, and it's giving our kids who are jumping from elementary to middle school a lifeline. Now, if we do that with every year and we don't scaffold more challenges onto them, then we're just kind of lowering the bar a bit. But there's nothing wrong with, especially if it's 6th grade, hey, let's do this. Then we're going to add a little bit at 7th grade. 8th grade, hey, this is our prep platform year for high school. And then don't forget the bird, right? Everything I shared with you guys today should help with the motivation of your child.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just have 3 more questions so far. How can I help my 11-year-old to pay attention in his classes? He zones out and plays computer games.
Yeah, a couple things there. Like just do a quick check to see if the teacher's, using some engaging strategies, which most of them are, right? But we're in stiff competition in education with kids and screens. Like the stuff on computers is way more fun than fractions will ever be. It's just the way it's just it's a hard ask for a teacher. But for an 11-year-old, I would actually share the stuff from the B, which we call in the research, and school districts would know about it, the reinforcement schedule, where you put a timer and you catch kids being on task. Highly effective in a classroom for an 11-year-old. That would be highly effective. Is just say, hey, we're practicing this thing at home where we set a timer where we actually catch the student being on task as opposed to catching them being on the computer, because we can share with the teacher that's exactly what's happening in the classroom. The more we catch the kid going on the computer, the more they're going to do it. Just it's human behavior. It's where attention goes, kids go.
Okay. And then this next one, 2-step kids, neither academically inclined and neither are encouraged to do work when they are with their mom. Any ideas on how to manage the different households?
Yeah, it's so hard. So, different households, it's a lot like I explained with the different teachers, right? Establish those really consistent things. Just in a respectful way, just like these are the things that we're gonna have to stick to. Academically, not being academically inclined, depending upon their age, typically just means a little bit more coaching about we call it reality-based therapy, or just like, hey, I don't love school. I'm not here to send you to school just to do schoolwork. But what's the goal here? I just want to play video games, or I just want to go play hockey, or whatever, whatever their interest is. Like, that's fine, but let's fast forward 15 years and help me out here. I'm here for you. I want to be here for you. I get that school's hard. I get that it's not your jam. What is your jam? And do you understand the basic steps? If you ever want to play hockey on your own, you're going to need to purchase that equipment. If you want to play video games on your own, you're going to have to buy a gaming system, internet. Just, and in my book too, we talk a little bit about what that reality-based resilience coaching is, where it's not just, shoving their face like, if you don't work, you're not going to make it in this world. It's not just that. It's like, let me teach you the skills of what it takes to pay bills and live on your own, and we'll work backwards. And if you can do that and not go to school, I'm actually okay with that. I'm not interested in making you miserable to get a high school diploma. I'm interested in you thriving and finding contentment. And that's where that dream writing exercise can go into. There's so much wrapped into these little mini exercises of connecting with our kids on a meaningful level, so they know that they're not just in this machine. And I feel like sometimes it's my fault as a parent that I put my kids in a machine. I do probably, if I'm not awake, I'm sleepwalking, 50% of the time, I'm just like, I'm glad my kids are somewhere safe. That's 50% of why I send them to school. And if I don't recenter the reason why they're there and remind them the importance that learning isn't, I'm not interested in grades, but I'm really interested in that you learning about the world and learning our place in it and learning how to apply your skills and your strategies. That's the value of mine. That's why I got in the family business. That's why I'm doing this. And we have to reconnect with that. Or it can feel like you're just, a piece of laundry in the laundry machine, and that doesn't feel good.
Okay, and we have one question left. It says, how do you help a kindergartner to be more encouraged about homework? My daughter is okay with homework, but I would like less fight about it. She says she can't do it. Whenever I tell her, yes, you can, she usually gets it, but it's a fight.
I would go right back to this and throw the homework out the door until 3rd grade. I don't think any kindergartner should be doing homework, period. I'd say that to the state school board superintendent. I'd say to anybody in education leadership, don't be giving kindergartners homework. Go play with them. Go to a park and have 2 blades of grass talk to each other and break a blade of glass and then start crying and be like, oh no, what happened to this grass? That's way more valuable time than doing homework with your kindergartner.
Okay, that was the last question.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ben. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for teaching us these very practical approaches. And I know I learned a lot tonight. So thank you very much. We appreciate
Hey,
it.
thanks for having me. You guys are great. I know how hard it is, what you guys do and what parents are going through. And I'm so glad that you guys are always a resource for them. So thank you.